So far we've got comfrey, aloe vera, as far as perennials go, in our bank. Lemongrass is one of them. These are all plants that you need to, if you're establishing orchards and gardens and stuff, these are the perennials that you need to establish first. The lemongrass will keep this grass from invading your gardens. It's got lots of medicinal properties. You can cook with the root. And then when your neighbor moves in and wants to start a garden, you can just pull out some of the suckers and give it to them, and now they've got it. So it's part of the perennial bank. Anything you want to add to that, Mike?
The oils in the lemongrass add that smell to the garden as a
Active ingredient.
insect repellent.
It's like citronella. There's a different variety of lemongrass. It's a lot bigger. That will actually throw off seed for citronella grass. I don't know if it's actually got citronella, but it's a very similar oil.
The citral is the main.
Citral, yeah. I think another reason that it's beneficial is the fact that it's a clumping grass and it doesn't seed, hence why you can do this. So it's not going to start propagating where you don't want it. And there's another grass that's similar called vetiver grass that they use to stabilise dam walls, banks and the rest of it. But people have been doing it with lemongrass because it's
easier to, it propagates
better.
We've got vetiver down there, we can show you guys.
You can dig it up where you can't dig up better.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And basically how you're doing that is you're doing it really closely to get almost like, say, that border on near my bananas there, on, say, your dam wall on contour, and you go along and you chop and drop and you basically pile the mulch on that side and it starts to build up.
On the top side of it, and it's also catching any nutrient that's falling downhill as well.
A bunch of lemongrass around the edge of the bank that goes around my house, and I used to get quite a few snakes up at the house, and I've heard that lemongrass does deter snakes, and so it's like I've got this lemongrass wall around the house, and I don't get snakes at all. Well, very rarely do I get snakes at the house now. I don't know how true it is, but it's my experience.
I just want to say this garden bed costs nothing. We didn't bring any materials in. What I did was dig out on the top side of this inside the chicken coop, so it was a bit of a swale. It also catches a lot of the macadamias, so I kind of checked this area first. Chickens have scratched it up a bit, but because there's a lot of nutrient in here from the chickens, it's passively going into this garden bed as well. And the mulch is sort of bits and pieces from around the garden as well, and all of these plants have been propagated from sort of one stem or seed.
We got a citronella grass, which is also a fire hazard. The lemongrass tends to stay green if it's got a bit of water, and the other one dies right back.
And you can actually eat it. I've tried to eat that citronella grass. It's eating timber.
It's good in tea.
Yeah, makes a beautiful tea.
Yeah,
and it's good for mulch. That's what I'm doing. Just keep cutting it back.
Yeah, a bit like what I was doing here. I mean, you can cut it all the way back as well.
I was thinking thatching with it.
And you can make cordial out of it. It's very sort of subtle and
really nice.
Put lime with it.
Yeah.
But it's the berries that the birds have enjoyed. These are just small plants. But you can cut them to make sort of hedging, or you can just let them grow and they'll sort of weep over. The berries you can boil up and make a syrup out of, and it's a superfood now. It's like our version of echinacea, but it's a perennial. It really strengthens your immune system. And
Stems are hollow.
You can use like the whole, I'm not exactly sure on the full medicinal value, but you can use the leaves, the stems. The stems are hollow, and they used to make flutes and recorders out of them, and pipes. The roots are medicinal as well, and a great thing to put around your compost pile, because it's a good activator. You can chop it up and put it into your compost. So again, you can just use that as a chop and drop around the plants that you're in, but there's generally a lot of moisture around your compost, and so things will start growing around the outside of it. So if you've got like comfrey and yarrow, and like herbs that are nutrient resources, that they draw it up from the ground or release it, you can just add that straight into your compost. It's like you've got the feed right there.
In Europe it's held in such high regard that men would always tip their hat as they went past the elderberry bush as a sign of respect. So,
And they'd plant it at the front or the back door because it's supposed to, on an energetic level, prevent the fairy spirits, the naughty fairy spirits from coming in. Folklore says.
And it's very delicious.
It's delicious. Yeah, but again, like the Solanaceae, you have the right berries. Don't eat the berries when they're not ripe.
No, when they're ripe, they're
Yeah,
delicious.
eat them ripe.
So there is a few different types, Jeffrey. Yeah, like in Tasmania, there's another variety of the Sambucus, which is just smaller, tougher, hardier looking plant that I guess is more suited to the temperate environment. One up here.
A bit like the mulberry.
For my limited research on the macadamia, it has all the amino acids in it, so it's a complete protein. So it's a superfood. It's a good one. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. No, like this has been fruiting and dropping seed the whole time we've been here. We've been here 8 months and we've had macadamias every single day. I mean, blessing it being a 20-year-old tree, and there's just so much food here. Like I'll come down here when I'm hungry in the morning for a bit of breakfast, and I'll have like 5 nuts, and I'll feel satisfied. They're very hard shell. You got to get a hammer or a special cracker to get into them.
You can roast them, crack them, or crack them, same as candle nuts. And you put them in the fire, like they bust it.
Yeah, so be far enough away that they don't explode on you. But
Yeah.
they just they fall from the tree, or you can grab them ripe off the tree. But they're green and they start splitting. So we just come down with the basket whenever we have friends over, and just fill the basket full. You were saying you can make a cheese, like a vegan cheese with them, or yogurt.
Yeah,
Milk.
and milk. Macadamia nut milk, macadamia nut cheese. If you stand it on its end, where it's connected to the tree, and then it has a little bump at the other end, you stand it on the end and put it into an indentation in a rock, and then hit it with another rock with very firm, solid, not like that, but like boof. You get a whole nut. And then you don't have to dig out every little piece, unless you've got a nut cracker.
Wait until they're brown.
And any nut loses lots of nutrition as soon as you take that shell off. So buying them from the shop and the shell's off, it's already lost 80% of its nutrition. And they ferment really quickly, nuts, when they're out of the shell. But to make the cheese, you take them out of the shell, put them in a jar, cover them with water. The next morning, drain the water off. Now you put them in your blender, or I like to use a meat mincer. They work really well for making nut butters. And then you pour water, put that in a jar, pour water over it, and then put a screen over the jar, put it in a warm place. Like if you live in suburbia or you have a refrigerator, you put it in the back of your refrigerator because that heat is always going out. And the first time you do it, it takes about 48 hours, up to 48 hours to turn to cheese. You know it's turned to cheese when all the water's gone to the bottom and you can see holes through it. It looks like Swiss cheese. Then it's done. And then when you make the next batch, you just save a half a teaspoon, and that's your starter, that's your culture. The next time you do it, it only takes a couple hours to turn to cheese. It was a main staple in my family's diet because so many people are telling me you can't raise children on raw foods because they're not going to get their vitamin B12 complex. I came up with this. So they would every night sit and crack these, put them in water, and next morning grind them into butter. They did the whole thing. And then they would sprout wheat, and rice was their favorite, so half rice, half wheat. They would sprout it, put it through the mincer, and make bread. Sprouted bread, put the macadamia nut on it, go down to their gardens and pick a bit of lettuce. They got a whole meal. So any questions about the macadamia nut?
I think just that you can travel with it. You can put them together and then break them open when you actually need them.
You rarely find them in the bush because the rats get them. But see, that's the point. Like the original people had such an intimate relationship with the earth that they knew exactly when those nuts are going to start dropping. They just go camp there and pick up every one. You know, but we don't have that knowledge. We're regaining that knowledge, remembering that knowledge. So you'll hardly ever see this wild in the bush. Yeah. And they can fruit and start producing nuts in ultimate conditions in 4 years. So I start, when I'm going to start with a blank canvas, I start with fruits that are going to give you fruit within 1 year. So dragon fruit, papayas, bananas, passion fruit, those kind of things. And then you put those other trees like macas in a pot, and then after these ones are up, you start whacking these in under the shade, in the story, underneath your pigeon peas and stuff. And it can start giving you nuts in 4 years. So then there's other trees like that, soursop, jackfruit, they can start giving you fruit in 3 years. So that's the next one. And then you go to your longer term ones like the star apple, like the abu, like the durian, like, all those other ones. So you layer it. Somebody. But yeah, this is a nightshade berry, but there's also a deadly nightshade berry which has a pattern of 5 leaves instead of 3 when it comes out. And the leaves are a lot bigger, the berry's a lot bigger, and those ones you leave alone. These ones you got to teach your kids though that they've got to be all the way black, because if you don't teach them that, a lot of kids will just grab these ones that aren't black, and they're very toxic. So if they're not, you got to teach your kids from a small. I started teaching my kids as soon as they could walk. They were with me in the bush, in the gardens. By the time they're 4 years old, they got their own garden. And the other kids would grow up, they would talk to each other and go, oh, I'm going to grow capsicums. Okay, I'll grow tomatoes, And then dinner time comes, they all go to their gardens and come back. We also had a communal garden. But I think it's really important to connect your kids to the earth and have them watch that miracle of life from the seed all the way through nurturing it and then consuming it. People used to ask me, how in the heck did you get all 3 kids to eat a big bowl of salad? Well, if a kid watches that miracle of life unfold, there's no way they're not going to eat it. And it's so sweet. They'll eat a carrot and go, oh my God, that's so sweet. I didn't realize,